Part 95. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 950. Latest website. After leaving the embassy, it was midsummer in Cape Town and the weather was relatively hot. Lu Feng took a deep breath and felt a little more comfortable. Ambassador Su looked at Lu Feng and said, "There is not much room for change in this matter, but we will try our best to fight for it. I am afraid there will be no solution in a short time. According to their past methods, if they argue, it will take a long time. Time. You just want to drag me to death," Lu Feng sneered and said disdainfully, "these three axes are really easy to use. Faced with such a problem, no matter which country it is or how big the company is, there is nothing that can be done. This is because there is no evidence. Toshiba, for example, is now subject to global sanctions, and even the top management of the company has undergone a major change," Ambassador Su said helplessly. "This is the real world, and we must try our best to protect our rights and interests to the greatest extent possible." The words were sonorous and powerful, but they were full of helplessness. Lu Feng nodded, said goodbye to Ambassador Su, and after leaving each other's phone numbers, Lu Feng took the car back to the hotel. Outside the window, the setting sun dyed the earth golden, and the tables were filled with local specialties. Lu Feng and the others had no appetite at all. Han Qiaoping contacted all the connections he could contact in the afternoon. How many connections can a company that has just stepped out of the door have? Not to mention the interpersonal relationships and interest relationships established during the operation of the company. Even a big boss who is willing to sell face to Lu Feng can only be a fish on a sticky board when encountering such a thing. There were 7 or 8 people at the table. You look at me, I look at you. No one moved their chopsticks. The atmosphere on the table almost solidified. Lu Feng lit a cigarette, took a puff and said, "Eat, I'll take a nap later." A few phone calls to get in touch. Not many people talked during this meal. Many people in the team said privately that there was no choice in this matter. This was definitely not a business matter, let alone a few detours and tricks to get through. Yes, any individual or company appears vulnerable in the face of a global hegemon. After eating, Lu Feng stood up and returned to the room silently. The only person he could contact now was Khalees, but what was Khalees' identity? That is definitely a wolf that eats people without spitting out bones. As for the Schroeder's group, let alone, if they are brave enough, they will not engage in financial confrontation. Fuzhou, their industrial system has always adopted the wild goose array for development. In the 1990s, companies such as Toshiba, Sony, and Sharp were the leaders, and other companies provided industrial support for these companies. Basically, one link was linked to another, and the competition is not fierce, but there is more cooperation. This is also the reason why many small businesses can work for decades. Marketization is general, social competition is low, and personnel mobility is small. The Toshiba incident is equivalent to punching the goose in the figure-8 array. The pain is definitely painful. Product sales will decrease, and supporting companies that follow Toshiba will be affected. This is also the first time Toshiba came out to kneel down. Reason for apology. In a tatami room, several women in kimonos were kneeling on it to refill their drinks. There were more than a dozen people sitting in the room. These people were basically around 50 or 60 years old. Sitting in front was a man in his 60s. The man looked thoughtful, as if he was thinking about something. Watanabe sat at the very end, his head lowered and silent. "We were wrong in this matter about Toshiba, but we have admitted our mistake and tried to minimize the impact as much as possible. We will provide assistance to Toshiba in this matter. The overall direction is that we were wrong. But we are not entirely wrong. The United States has gone too far," the man said in a deep voice. "Thank you, Minister," Toshiba president bowed and thanked. The other party has dealt such a heavy blow and imposed sanctions on a global scale. The ultimate goal is to hit the domestic semiconductor industry. In recent years, Silicon Valley has invested more and more in the semiconductor industry, and the competition for international orders has become increasingly fierce. Motorola Group, the president analyzed. I heard that the company that reported us also got into trouble, asked the man sitting in the front seat. Yes, this company is also developing towards high-tech, focusing on semiconductors. It invests 17% of its profits in R/U0026D every year. It is still growing at a high speed and is developing rapidly. It has also won the Schroeder Group's investment, accounting for as much as 35% of the shares. If we don't sanction him, who will be sanctioned? Ha 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 ha. The room burst into laughter and gloating, and the stiff atmosphere finally eased. The president of Panasonic took a sip of sake from his wine glass and said, "We opposed the sale of Ruxin Laboratory by Roma Group at the beginning, and now it seems that the sale of this core asset is a great threat to us. It's just a small business. It doesn't have any core technology. Even if it invests in research and development, it doesn't have much competitiveness. This suppression is more like a show for other countries." Everyone at the scene was discussing the driving force behind this incident. The minister sitting in the seat said, "In order to get Toshiba out of the sanctions as soon as possible, I suggest that Motorola come forward to contact the Chinese company. Let's first buying a part of the equity and then transferring it to the United States. As long as it can get a chance to breathe, this money should be spent." As soon as the suggestion came out, Toshiba was the first to support it, saying repeatedly that it could pay for it as long as the crisis was overcome. It's just that the president of Motorola was a little unhappy. They wanted Toshiba to come out, but they definitely didn't want it to come out so soon. They didn't say anything for a while. Watanabe was speechless on this occasion, and kept kneeling on the edge in silence. What's more, he didn't have much feelings for Fuzhou, who yearned for Wall Street. As soon as he heard that there was an opportunity to please the United States, Watanabe suddenly became energetic and said, "Dear Minister, if you want to acquire the equity of GFN Electronics, I can contact you, and I have good personal relationships with many high-level companies on Wall Street." The president of Motorola stared at Watanabe, who appeared, feeling a little dissatisfied, but it was not convenient to say anything at this time. "Really? I'll leave it to you then." The party dispersed, and Watanabe followed the president out to the car door. The president stopped, looked back at Watanabe and said, "Watanabe-san, there is no need to be so active in speaking on some things. There is a famous saying. It's called, 'Shutting up is a lifelong lesson.'" "Yes," Watanabe agreed, bowing slightly. "Since you have agreed, let's do it. Whether it is done well or not is another matter. The time at which something is completed is very important." After he said that, he got in the car directly. The car sped away, and Watanabe stood in the cold wind and got into the car without saying a word. He didn't care about that. When he got home, he contacted GFN Electronics headquarters as soon as possible. Lu Feng had no choice but to play doctor on a dead horse and tried to dial Khalees's personal phone number. "Hello, who are you?" Khalees' tone on the other end of the phone was relatively relaxed and she sounded in a good mood. "Hi, it's me, Lu Feng from GFN Electronics," Lu Feng said into the phone. "How is Sister Khalees doing lately?" Khalees was not surprised when she heard it was Lu Feng. When she heard him calling her sister affectionately, with a playful smile on her face, she said, "So close. You are not afraid that the phone will be monitored?" "I will give it to you when the time comes." "Put on the hat of a spy." "Ouch, this is serious. Close friends like you and me are just chatting on the phone. Even if it is monitored by someone, it is at best a scandal." Lu Feng smiled and said, "That. What happened last time was because I did something wrong. Sister, you have 1,000 mountains in your chest and waves inside, so don't argue with me." "I'm not arguing with you. It's already 10 o'clock in the evening. If you have something to say, just tell me." If you don't, just hang up. I want to rest, Kelly said slightly impatiently. Don't. I really need to see my sister for something. There is a problem with our business in Africa. Can you help us deal with it? We can pay some fines in private. As for which big shot the fine goes to, I don't care. You don't worry, sister, your share will definitely be indispensable, Lu Feng said sincerely. This is not a question of money. Let me tell you this. The ones who really want to mess with you are not us, but those in Silicon Valley and Wall Street. If you like doing research and development so much, then hand over the means of production. We will definitely keeping it secret for you. Moving the headquarters to New York will make financing more convenient, and it won't delay your research and development. We even encourage you to do research and development, Kelly said solemnly. It's good for us here now. It's too troublesome to move there and build a building. But I swear to God, my heart is definitely longing for the United States. Lu Feng's voice was indescribably firm. He, Kelly chuckled, not wanting to play such a childish game with him, and asked, who do you serve? Of course I am serving myself. Whenever you serve us, whenever we support you, that's it, don't call us, Kelly said and hung up the phone. Lu Feng sat on the sofa and listened to the busy tone on the phone with a very ugly face. He took a deep breath. He really had no choice. All he could think of now was to survive with a broken arm and give up the African business. Faced with this situation, the vast majority of people don't even have the courage to cut off their arms, and can only let the other party manipulate them. The phone rang. Lu Feng answered the phone and said, "Who is this?" "Mr. Lu, it's me," Wei Yandan's voice came over the phone. It was probably late at night in China, and she hadn't rested yet. "What's wrong?" "What Nabe wants to call you, saying it's related to African affairs." "Take it over, I'd like to hear what he has to say," Lu Feng said solemnly. Not long after hanging up the phone, a call came in. Lu Feng answered the phone, and the voice of Shi Watanabe came from the other end. "Lu Feng Kun, we talked again not long ago after the Thai market. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 951. Latest website. Lu Feng felt a little awkward listening to his Japanese-style English, and couldn't help but said, "If you have something to say, say it, and let it go. If you are just chatting with me, I have no intention of chatting with you now." "Lu Feng Kun, don't be so impatient. It's already late here, so I checked the time there before calling you. I know you're in a hurry now, so didn't I give you a solution?" Watanabe. There was a hint of teasing in Xi's voice. "Send me a solution," Lu Feng sneered. He would never think that this person had such good intentions. "Yes, if you don't agree to the request of the United States, then the African market will definitely disappear. It is even unknown whether the Thai market can be saved in the future. Since you don't want to sell to them, why not sell to us?" Watanabe Xi said lazily on the phone. "We can buy shares, how about it? What's the difference? Then I might as well let Wall Street financial companies take control. Everyone is here to be a dog, so why should I be a dog?" Lu Feng said to the phone. "You are still licking. You have the nerve to call me? Do you feel that you are the only one in danger and I am so grateful to you? Bah! Lu Feng. Don't be so shameless." Watanabe on the other end of the phone never dreamed that Lu Feng would react like this. He said with an embarrassed face, "I tell you, this is your best choose, otherwise Jiafeng Electronics will never be able to take a step out of China in this life, and the global business will be completely ruined. It's better to be in trouble than to work hard to cook a meal, only to have someone watching the meal while it's in the pot, making all your hard work in vain, right? This is your last chance. We are all Asians, and I spent a lot of time trying to get it for you." Watanabe was angry, as if Lu Feng was a dog biting Lu Dongbin and didn't recognize good people. "Ha ha ha ha," Lu Feng laughed when he heard this. took a sip from his cigarette, coughed, and said after a while, "Just you? Let me tell you, I know yourself better than you do, so I wish I could kneel before you. Kowtow to those gentlemen in the middle of Wall Street Road, take you back quickly. I won't say anything else, but ask yourself, do you want to be a fuzu? You are a humming Japanese trader. You. Bagaya Road." What nabe she was so upset that he became angry and cursed randomly in Japanese. After cursing, he hung up the phone. It was almost 12 o'clock in the evening. Lu Feng threw the phone aside with some irritation, lit a cigarette, opened the sliding door and stood on the balcony. A week went by in a blink of an eye. Lu Feng and others made no progress except waiting for news. Han Kuoping hired a local barrister to file a lawsuit locally and prepare to file a lawsuit there. But everyone knows that the chance of winning such a lawsuit is very slim, and it takes a long time. Some lawsuits can even drag on for several years, and the legal fees are sky high. Wei Yandan and other domestic executives actively spoke out, and even reported it on the important domestic news media from 7 to 7:30. The matter has risen to another level. In a week, the most calls Lu Feng received were from investors. This kind of crisis was not a simple business crisis, but a devastating blow in a fundamental sense. Jenkin made more than a dozen calls and kept asking about the progress. Lu Feng truthfully told the latest situation and even informed Sun Hongkai that he could withdraw the 500 million yuan invested this year. Sun Hongkai is also hesitant because they see no movement from Schroeder's investment group. In terms of investment risks, such a large group controls risks more accurately. If it doesn't leave, there is no need for them to leave. Also waiting and watching with Sun Hongkai was United Capital. Several major shareholders' hearts almost stopped when they heard about this incident. The turmoil at GFN Electronics is really a big girl in the dance hall, and it is getting bigger and bigger every time. Ambassador Su received news today. Negotiations are still ongoing, but it is very difficult and there is little hope. The legal team is also looking at local laws, hoping to find legal provisions that can avoid the seizure of goods. In the blink of an eye, another half has passed. It is already the end of October. The domestic market has basically stabilized. Public opinion about GFN Electronics patent infringement has begun to slowly decrease. GFN Electronics products have experienced a wave of sales troughs. Recovering. These 22 days were definitely the most painful for Lu Feng. He had an indescribable feeling of powerlessness. Whether it was from some reports or the words he heard from some people, it made people feel depressed. A few days ago, Lu Feng tried his best to contact Eisen of Goldman Sachs Group, and through Eisen he contacted the assistant of the CEO of Goldman Sachs Group. The other party on the phone made it very clear that we are going to kill you unless you give up investing in semiconductor research and switch to other research and development. If we attack your voice now, the next step will be to attack your laboratory and overseas our /U0026D base. At that time, Lu Feng smiled and said, "You are quite straightforward." The other party said that for small companies like GFN Electronics, they don't need to be secretive. GFN Electronics is so weak that they don't need to lie, and there is no need to lie. If they hit you, they will hit you, so what? Despair. After hanging up the phone that day, Lu Feng only had this feeling. In his last life, he had seen a certain company replace all its top executives overnight under pressure, and they paid the fine in full. What did the other party want to do with it? Just play with it? At that time, Lu Feng angrily scolded the weakling, but now that he was facing so much pressure, he realized the difficulty. GFN Electronics was only one of the two major overseas markets. If one day the group has markets in hundreds of countries around the world and faces a global market shutdown, then Lu Feng will be tough and will probably be kicked out of the board of directors overnight, and then the board of directors will choose another person. Come out, you should be soft or soft. Just like what was said on that phone call, We just want to suppress you, so what can you do? Do you have any ideas? If you have a move, you will go, if you don't, you will die. Enterprises that have not recruited are unwilling to die, so they can only kneel down. After all, their lives are saved. The business world is very cruel, but compared to the matter before him, Lu Feng felt that it was child's play. It's been almost a week since he went out. Lu Feng stayed in his room. When he got upset, he went to stand on the balcony for a while and blew in the wind. He had a phone call with Su Yorong last night. He also responded to United Capital's investment. If he wanted withdraw and all funds returned. Su Yorong has not been idle at all this year. As we get closer to 1997, the outflow of enterprises in Hong Kong has become unstoppable, and United Capital has made a lot of money from this. Su Yorong has also become one of the most influential figures in the financial industry in Hong Kong. Her connections involve local celebrities, real estate businessmen, financial tycoons, etc. It can be said that Su Yorong now is more skillful than Mr. Chen before. During this period, she also helped ask many people, but she had no answer at all about GFN Electronics. At most, these people were rich and at worst knew some of the local leaders. As for internationally, no one was recruited. In the past 6 months, Su Yorong has been attending dinner parties less and less. United Capital finally organized a dinner event similar to Financial Night. Because of this incident, Sun Hongkai even had several quarrels with United Capital. Xiangjiang, at 7 o'clock in the evening, Su Yorong brought a lot of gifts. She was wearing a black professional suit and a pair of black rimmed glasses and high heels. She looked quite like a strong woman. Compared with the heavy makeup at last year's dinner, her temperament at this moment he became more solid, like a nouveau riche who had accumulated a fortune, seen the world, and started to move towards the upper-class society. At the gate of the Feng family residence, Su Yorong got out of the car and informed the guard. A few minutes later, Jenkin came out. He was a little surprised to see Su Yorong and asked, "Is something wrong, Mr. Su?" "I just happened to be passing by and wanted to take a look at Mr. Feng, so I didn't make an appointment in advance," Su Yorong said with a smile. "I'm sorry for being abrupt." "Mr. Su is interested. It's not convenient to meet without an appointment," Jenkin replied. "Mr. Feng, are you not feeling well?" Jenkin's expression changed. He looked at Su Yorong and said, "Mr. Feng is in good health, but he doesn't see any guests at night." "Really? Then take these gifts in." "Is Mr. Xiao Feng here?" Su Yorong asked again. Just as Jenkin was about to say that Feng Xiao was not here, Feng Xiao came over and asked, "Who is it?" "Xiao, it's me," Su Yorong waved towards Feng Xiao and said, "Brother Feng called me yesterday. He mentioned you and asked me to come over and see you." "Really? Come in quickly." When Feng Xiao heard that Lu Feng mentioned him, he hurriedly opened the door and invited him in. Lu Feng had been furious at this time, so he couldn't care less about his life and death, not to mention that his life couldn't be worse. Jenkin had no choice but to invite Su Yorong in. He talked all the way in. Su Yorong said how Lu Feng cared about him and hoped that he would work well in the company. It would be more difficult for him outside, but he could get through it. Are all small things. While chatting all the way, just picking out what Feng Xiao liked to hear, Su Yorong suddenly changed the subject and asked, "How is your health lately, old man?" "Oh, my dad." Ahem, Jenkin coughed twice and said, "Mr. Feng is in good health." "Mr. Su, didn't I tell you just now? Why ask again?" "Sorry, I forgot." Su Yorong smiled naturally. United Capital does not know what the situation is at Schroeder's Group, nor does it know the status of Sun Hongkai's shareholding in GFN Electronics. If they want to withdraw, United Capital must withdraw, which means that the matter has reached an irreversible point. In addition, There are recent rumors in Hong Kong that Mr. Feng is in poor health and may not be able to survive the Chinese New Year. If he leaves, Sun Hung Kai may face falling apart. This is also a major turning point in whether to continue investing in GFN Electronics. If Su Yorong asked directly, he would definitely not be able to find out, and he would be kicked out on the spot. After a while of organizing the conversation, Su Yorong asked Feng Xiao, "Such a big thing has happened to GFN Electronics recently. Isn't Sun Hung Kai not willing to invest? For a small amount of money, I hold some original shares." Brother Feng said that if you feel pressured, you can sell them to me at the original price. Are you kidding? Don't talk about the original price. We won't sell it even if you pay a premium. What's the relationship between me and Brother Feng? It's okay. We have no pressure. We are very optimistic about Brother Feng. Feng Xiao said that this time the board of directors did not give Lu Feng any treatment. Ya felt very happy and said to Jenkin, "That's right, Uncle Kun." Jenkin kept a straight face and said nothing, cursing secretly in his heart, "You leaked the secret." Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 952. Latest website. Jenkin couldn't speak directly, so he could only say, "This matter is still under discussion by the board of directors. The situation faced by GFN Electronics is complicated. Although Xiao has accepted business from some companies, he has not yet made some core decisions. I haven't contacted you yet, Mr. Su, please come this way." Jenkin took cover. Su Yorong was almost a man, so he naturally didn't believe these words, so he smiled and walked to the living room. After sitting down and chatting for a while, Su Yorong kept praising Feng Xiao for being sensible and mature. An hour later, Su Yorong stood up and left. "Mr. Su, please stay for dinner. It's already dinner time and the kitchen is ready." Jenkin stood up and said politely. "No need to bother. I have a dinner party tonight, so I won't bother you." Su Yorong waved his hand and said, "No need to send it off. I'll go out on my own. If you need anything, call me and tell Mr. Feng that I've been here." After being polite, Su Yorong left. Jenkin looked at Feng Xiao and wanted to say something, but in the end he just sighed secretly. Although he had been with Mr. Feng for many years, he was a senior executive in the company, and he had not spent much time in the Feng family. But after all, he is just an outsider. For such a long time, Jenkin has gotten to know Feng Xiao relatively well. He has grown up being held in the palm of his hand and has never been exposed to the real world. People around him have been kind to him since he was a child. Whatever is in his heart, what to say, no one harmed him. Such a person is really not suitable to run such a company. When Mr. Feng was in good health, Jenkin even discussed it with him. At that time, Mr. Feng said that he would give him some time, but it was not possible because he still had two brothers. Now Mr. Feng is suddenly ill and has been admitted to the hospital. No one knows how long he can resist, and the next step is to wait and see. Su Yorong sat in the car and rushed to the hotel. She judged that Mr. Feng must have a physical problem and basically had no control over the current company. That means that his proxy shareholder in United Capital does not dare to make major decisions. This time is her opportunity. As for Lu Feng, she couldn't control it. Now was a good opportunity for her to fish in troubled waters. Tonight's dinner was a game for the shareholders of United Capital. In 1 year, she had attracted all the shareholders with more than 50% of the shares, in order to one day be able to hunt down the big shareholders headed by Li Mingzi. Shareholder, she wants to further control United Capital and completely break away from Lu Feng's control. "Hello, Mr. Li," Su Yorong said to the mobile phone. "It's me, Su Yorong. I have internal news that the problem of GFN Electronics is about to be solved, and the investment of Schroeder's group has not moved at all. Just now I went to Feng. I walked around the house and realized that Mr. Feng was probably in trouble. Now the entire company's board of directors was in control. My relationship with Lu Feng was known to all the capital circles in Xiangjiang. I told them that GFN Electronics was going to be finished, which scared them. Ha 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 ha. Mr. Su went to Feng's house to find out. What do you mean? Li Mingzi was a little confused on the phone. Jenkin is a little panicked. Now he wants to sell the equity of GFN Electronics. Isn't this good news for us? With such a firm investment from Schroeder Group, even if it is sold, we can still make a lot of money. It's a deal, Su Yorong said to the phone. Are you interested? I don't have any money right now. If I have money, I will definitely buy it. You mean, buy it as a private person? Li Mingzi said a little doubtfully. Absolutely. This is obviously money that has changed hands. If Schroeder Group is particularly optimistic, it is not difficult to resell it at a premium of 50%. You must know that they now have 35% of the equity. Besides, 10%, which is basically an absolute controlling stake. Su Yorong could tell that he hesitated a little and said, how about this? You can help me raise some funds, and I'll do it. When Li Mingzi heard that she was going to raise funds, he immediately became anxious. How could Su Yorong swallow the meat in his mouth? How much do they want? I spent 1 billion originally, and now I want to get this money back, Su Yorong said into the phone. 1 billion? I really can't get 1 billion, Li Mingzi said worriedly, at most 7 to 8 billion, most of which will require mortgage loans. Go out and borrow. It's just a waste of time. How about this? I'll be left to figure out a solution. I'm considered a part of it, Su Yorong said with joy in his voice. You can still leave me alone and do it alone. That's not possible. Mr. Su is now a man with great hands and eyes. Okay, I'll be ready. After hanging up the phone, Su Yorong took out a lady's cigarette and lit it. He lowered the window and looked at the night scene outside with a smile on his face. Once she gets the money, she will use Mr. Li's money to acquire Mr. Li's equity. When the time comes, the board of directors will hold a meeting and all will vote to approve his equity transfer. Everything will fall into place. Su Yorong thought about it carefully, fearing that something was not thoughtful enough. When he arrived at the place, he called Lu Feng from his landline phone. At this moment, in South Africa, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng held a brief meeting with Guo Ping and a group of local lawyers. There was no room for change in this matter from the front, but there might be a change in South Africa's legal aspects. The meeting just ended when the assistant ran over to Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu, I have your phone number. Who called? Lu Feng asked. The other party claims that his surname is Su. You have something urgent to do. Su Yorong? Why was she in a hurry? Lu Feng casually said, I know he chatted with the local lawyer and asked, is there still a chance now? Can we win this lawsuit? Mr. Lu, it is basically impossible to win this lawsuit, but now I have a certain probability to prevent it from losing. The lawyer was a black man in his 50s who looked chubby and had thick lips. He continued to talk to Lu Feng. We now find that the regulations in the country's import and export trade rules are only limited to transactions, that is to say, according to international practice, if it infringes on the patent rights of others, it only restricts exports. The key here lies in the word transaction, restricting transactions. If we win this lawsuit, our local interests cannot be transferred away and can only be kept locally, Han Kuoping asked. Yes, this is a direction for our efforts. As long as you sell here and are bound by local laws and do not take the money out of the country, you will basically be unable to manage it. Of course, the other party will 100% apply for asset freeze. The lawyer looked at it. Lu Feng said, this should be the best result we can achieve through our efforts. Okay, thank you. I hope you can continue to work hard. The court will be held soon. Thank you for your hard work. Lu Feng stretched out his hand and shook his hand. No problem, this is what our law firm should do. He looked at Han Kuoping and said, according to the previous contract, 10% of the fee needs to be paid in advance before the trial. I hope you can do it as soon as possible. Okay. After exchanging polite words and sending the lawyer away, Lu Feng let out a long sigh and froze a bunch of assets in South Africa. This made no sense at all. Mr. Lu, do you want to pay the legal fees? Han Kuoping looked at Lu Feng. He felt that there was no need to pay the money. Winning like this is no different from losing. Seizure of goods or money is not the same. Well, hand in. Just struggle if you can, Lu Feng said solemnly. After explaining the matter, Lu Feng turned around and remembered that Su Yorong had called him. When he returned to the room, he had already picked up the phone and put it aside. Hey, what's going on? Lu Feng asked. Did you make a mistake? It took you so long to come here, it's already half an hour. Su Yorong's voice was filled with dissatisfaction as she asked, how is the matter in South Africa being handled? What do you think? Lu Feng asked. Don't worry too much. If you don't work at all, I'll still need you to eat and drink. Besides, don't you have me to take care of it? Su Yorong smiled slightly at the phone and said, come here, I'll take care of the food. Take care, it's not less than 200,000 pocket money every month. Ha ha ha, Lu Feng laughed and said, there are many women who are willing to spend money for me. Just wait in line. What's the matter with you? Tell me quickly. I'm very upset. It's like this. If the shareholders of United Capital call you to inquire about the progress of the matter in South Africa, just say that it has been perfectly resolved. Su Yorong said into the phone, that's it? Why? What have you done recently? Lu Feng frowned. What can I do? The old man has a bad heart recently. The company invested in you. This fluctuation is not something ordinary people can bear. I just want to make them feel at ease. Su Yorong fooled. Lu Feng knew her very well. If this woman made any movements, it would be no small matter. I don't care what you do. It's best not to make too big a move or cause trouble for me. Jiafeng has such a big problem. I don't have time to take care of Hurricane Capital, but that doesn't mean I can't control you, Lu Feng said solemnly. Oh, listen to what you said. We are already an old married couple, and yet we are still doing this. I know you are in a bad mood. When you come back from South Africa, I will live in Xiangjiang for a while. I will make you happy. No need, I have nothing else to do, so hang up, Lu Feng said as he prepared to hang up. By the way, one more thing. Do you know that Mr. Feng has a physical problem? Su Yorong said on the phone. I heard that this time it was quite serious and he was admitted to the ICU. Really? Lu Feng was silent for a while and said, what sad news? Who says it's not the case? I'm going to hang up now. I'm going to invite a bunch of shareholders to dinner today. When I come back, remember to come to Xiangjiang. It's been a long time since we last met. New. Lu Feng said a few perfunctory words and hung up the phone directly. He leaned on the sofa and smoothed his hair a little irritably. He didn't know what kind of medicine Su Yorong was selling in the gourd, but Mr. Feng was critically ill, which was indeed good news for Jiafeng Electronics, especially at this juncture. If Feng Xiao can take over, then Jiafeng Electronics Board of Directors will have 10% more voting rights. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 953. Latest website. Time passed very quickly, and it was November in the blink of an eye. The Jiafeng Electronics case had already begun court. At the end of October, many media around the world were paying attention, but now it has become indifferent. With the joint efforts of many parties, The best result Lu Feng can accept now is that the assets are frozen in South Africa. According to local laws, the South African Patent Protection Agency will conduct a thorough investigation of GFN Electronics and reject the transfer to the United States. This request was rejected, and many parties were under pressure. Such a result caused GFN Electronics to suffer heavy losses, but it had to accept it. Han Kuoping had been meeting with the court during this period. At noon, Han Kuoping returned to the hotel and saw Lu Feng in the restaurant. "Mr. Lu, the trial is over today and will continue next Monday. How is the matter? Does the court accept the lawyer's statement?" Lu Feng put down his chopsticks and asked. "Basically accepted. These barristers have extensive connections in the local area. A few days ago, he had a meal with the judge responsible for hearing the case and asked in private. As long as there is not too much pressure from above, it will be stable." Han Kuoping sat down and said, "But the lawyer also said that as soon as this case is judged, our assets in South Africa will be frozen immediately. His advice to us is to quickly exchange the currency for value-preserving assets. The frozen assets will at least be repaid if it can appreciate in value. Maybe in a few years this matter will turn around." Lu Feng has been thinking about what happened in the next few years, at least something related to this incident, so that he can have some counter-attack ability. But after thinking about it for such a long time, Lu Feng really never thought that he could counter-attack the United States in the 1990s. "Are there any outstanding assets here?" Lu Feng asked. "The main thing here is minerals. I'm really not sure about the others. I personally think that the main thing is to invest in minerals. Resources are the most valuable. At present, we have assets worth about 200 million yuan." Han Kuoping thought, "This money can buy a small mine here, or buy land. I will definitely not buy the land. The land in South Africa will not be worth much in 20 or 30 years. The main consideration is the mineral resources. Let's talk tomorrow. I'll call and ask." Lu Feng thought of the black guy on the plane. Maybe he could ask him about the situation. As things have developed today, GFN Electronics has decided to resist. It has not agreed to any of the three options. So much money is frozen in South Africa. As long as it does not bow its head for a day, this money will always be useless paper. The financial capital on Wall Street was also a little surprised when they saw this result. They really couldn't figure out what Lu Feng was thinking. There were obviously better choices, but they had to kill everything. Although the assets have been frozen and the vitality of GFN Electronics has been damaged, they can feel that GFN Electronics will still develop in a high-precision direction. This is by no means the result they want. They are also watching the court situation in South Africa. Many technology companies have seen this and continue to respond to Wall Street, hoping that the United States will come forward to put pressure on them and directly confiscate the assets of GFN Electronics in South Africa and seal up their global R/U0026D centers. Although some of the practices in the United States were a little more obscene, in the 1990s, they still wanted to save face, at least not for a small company like GFN Electronics. There are also disagreements within Goldman Sachs about this matter. Some people believe that there is no need to focus on a small company. We should look at global high-quality industries instead of worrying about a small company. Even if it is left to him, what else can be worked out? Another group of people, represented by Lambert, believe that people like Lu Feng are very threatening. If they are left alone, big trouble will easily happen. If they really grow up, it will be too late to curb them. What's more, the Schroeder group is support behind. The two sides argued endlessly, and naturally there was no strength to put pressure on GFN Electronics again, while Fuzu did not have enough power to suppress GFN Electronics. In the office, Lambert took a look at his fund's situation, threw the report on the table a little irritably, and sighed. He knew that the continuous attack on Lu Feng would not continue, which meant a loss of nearly 200 million yuan. GFN Electronics was short-tailed to survive. but he had a very bad premonition in his heart. In Lambert's eyes, Jiafeng Electronics was not enough evidence. What made him feel uneasy was Lu Feng. This man had an indescribable feeling. Perhaps this time suppression will make him speed up investment. Lambert muttered, picked up the appointment form next to him, looked through it, and crossed out all the previous appointments, leaving only a financial dinner in the evening, which was attended by all heavyweights, including Saras. In the evening, Lu Feng still called the little black guy on the plane. "Hello? Who are you?" Ronald's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hello, do you still remember me?" Lu Feng asked towards the phone. Who are you?" The person on the phone obviously didn't remember. "We left our phone number on the plane. I've almost finished handling the things here. It's fate to meet you. If you have time, come out for a meal. I'll treat you," Lu Feng said boldly. Ronald on the other end of the phone was a little hesitant. After all, he was also a well-known second-generation rich man in the local area. According to Lu Feng, he was a gas worker in the mine. "I really didn't know where Mr. Lu was from. He wasn't just anyone. I just wanted to be polite to the person I was making friends with." Lu Feng could feel the other party's hesitation, so he thought for a moment and said, "If it's inconvenient for you, I'll ask the butler to cancel the restaurant reservation." When Ronald heard that Lu Feng had a butler, he must not be an ordinary citizen, he said, "No, it's fate that we met. Where is the restaurant?" "I'll ask the housekeeper later," Lu Feng said into the phone. "Hang up now. I'll call you later." After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng sat there and thought for a while. This young man was actually watching others order food. If he were an ordinary person, he would never see him. Lu Feng thought of this, stood up and left the room, and rang the doorbell. When the door opened, Han Kuoping was a little surprised to see Lu Feng and said, "Mr. Lu, what do you want? Just give me a call. It's okay. Let's go out for a meal. Now, book the best hotel in Cape Town. It's a bit more upscale. Send out all the bodyguards and luxury cars. Go meet a rich second generation. Maybe you'll gain something. Things have already happened. At this point, a blind cat will kill a mouse. Okay, I'll make arrangements now. Also, just say you are my butler and I will tell you." Needless to say, respected British knight, Asia's richest man, Wall Street hunter Mr. Lu, I am honored to be your butler. Han Kuoping's face was serious, as if the scene had been waiting for an unknown amount of time in his heart, and it was finally his turn. "Got on the field." Lu Feng was stunned when he looked at him, and couldn't help but laugh. "You get into acting pretty quickly. Where did you learn that?" "The senior management of the group basically knows it. This is considered a required course," Han Kuoping said with a shy smile. Lu Feng really didn't expect this group of people to communicate in private about this matter, but when he thought about it, his boss often used this method. People like Zhu Lidong and Du Guoying had cooperated countless times, so how could the people below not know about it? Although Lu Feng has repeatedly said that flattery is not allowed within the company, it is impossible to completely eliminate it. In addition, this incident also shows that they have thought carefully about it. As the saying goes, "I cannot want it, but I have to give it away." "Okay, then get ready," Lu Feng ordered. Half an hour later, Lu Feng informed Ronald that he was at the Sun Hotel, hung up the phone and went downstairs. The team leader and his team had already changed their clothes. Lu Feng got into the car with everyone surrounding him, and the 5 cars sped away. The Grand Sun Hotel is the largest hotel in Cape Town and the Villa Hotel. The motorcade passed through the Western-style gatehouse and went directly to the hotel entrance. Before the doorman could approach, the team leader and his team had already blocked them aside, opened the car door, and as the breeze blew by, Lu Feng stepped out of the car. He was dressed in a suit and a windbreaker draped over his body. His hair was neatly combed, and he stepped out. "Go inside." A few minutes later, a Maserati sports car sped by. Ronald got out of the car, threw the car keys to the doorman, walked inside and asked the foreman, "Is Mr. Liu here?" "You mean, Mr. Liu from China?" "Yes, how do you know?" Ronald was a little confused. Could it be that Lu Feng told others about his hometown wherever he went? "A lot of people came in just now, and they didn't let us serve at all. Please come here." The foreman walked and talked about the scene just now. There were more than a dozen people. When they walked in, Lu Feng raised his hands and took off his windbreaker. Someone behind him immediately took it, and as soon as he raised his hand, someone next to him immediately handed him a cigar. The movements were so smooth that everyone in the hall was stunned. Ronald was considered a knowledgeable person. He knew that rich people tended to be more ostentatious, but he had never seen someone like Lu Feng. He stood in the elevator and was a little confused for a while, wondering what Lu Feng was. The largest private room in the restaurant was reserved by Lu Feng. It was more than 700 square meters. It was just a private room for eating. The interior was brightly lit and extremely luxurious. Lu Feng was sitting on the sofa alone watching TV. South Korea's Captain Ping He and more than a dozen people stood aside. 7 or 8 waiters and waiters stood opposite. The door of the private room was pushed open, and the foreman led Ronald in. As soon as he entered, he was stunned by the formation in front of him. There were 2 rows of people standing. On the large sofa, Lu Feng turned his back to Ronald and crossed his legs to watch. On the TV, you can only see his mysterious back. Han Kuoping walked over and said in English, "Mr. Liu, the guests are here." Lu Feng stood up, turned around, and stretched out his hand. Han Kuoping hurriedly handed over the cigar. Lu Feng took a sip and said with a smile, "We meet again. We are really destined." "Yes, it's fate, but when you're on a plane, it's normal to meet fellow travelers," Ronald said. "No. This is my first time to take a flight. Because both of my planes had problems, I had no choice but to take a passenger flight." Lu Feng pointed to the dining table in front of him and said, "Please take a seat." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 954. Latest website. 2 more private jets? Ronald was definitely a rich second generation, but he was also shocked by Lu Feng's arrogance and couldn't help but ask, "Why can't we use the 2 planes? It's like this. One is for Mr. Liu's father to welcome distinguished guests and form a fleet in the air, and the other is to be lent to the Thai prince for a few days." Han Kuoping said from the side, "I did this." "That's wrong, it's not arranged properly." "Stop talking about this, don't accept your year-end bonus." Lu Feng sat down and said, "Please sit down, this is the first time in my life that I have taken a plane to meet new friends." "I also like to meet new friends." Ronald sat down with a smile, and heard Han Kuoping whisper in his ear, "It's over." The millions of bonuses were gone again, and instantly his whole person was in a state of confusion. Stunned. What is Mr. Liu here to deal with? There was a problem with one of its small companies. The family business had a conflict with the United States. You know those financial companies on Wall Street? They were very aggressive all day long. It didn't matter. It was all solved. "That, butler, you can serve the food," Lu Feng casually ordered. As the meal began to be served, he opened a few bottles of red wine and chatted. During the conversation, Lu Feng tried to talk as little as possible about himself. At most, he talked about GFN Electronics or some nihilistic identities, such as with the Crown Prince of Thailand. Contacts, British titles, etc. What I talked about with Ronald was more about his family and some of his personal privacy. Chatting between people is the exchange of information. During the communication process, many smart people will use some junk information to exchange useful information for the other party, such as bragging about which boss they had dinner with, which leader was there at the time, and calibrating themselves to be superior to others. It seems that you have revealed a lot of information about your personal circle of friends, but in fact most of them are false. The other party will inquire about your social circle, income level, and even test whether you are satisfied with your current life, so as to further develop their interest in you. Judge. Ronald was obviously frightened by the cooperation of Lu Feng and Han Kuoping. The situation at home and his personal situation were basically the same. Their family has 2 diamond mines in the local area, but they do not have their own diamond brands. Diamond brand owners make huge profits, but their income is average. They also have 3 tungsten mines, and their profits are stable. This is still relying on signing large-scale contracts. The price of the contract is not high and it is stable after all. Tungsten mine, Lu Feng raised his eyebrows, thought for a while and said, "It seems that China has the largest tungsten storage in the world. This material is generally used in military industry, electrical and so on. It is a high-tech composite material. Africa, do you have any needs in this regard?" "I really don't know much about this aspect." Ronald smiled and said, "Are you playing sports cars?" Lu Feng felt that he seemed to have asked some more important questions. It was normal for the other party not to answer them, so he said, "I am not very interested in cars, but the rich people all like sports cars and so on." "Yes, I have been working very hard to integrate into their circle recently. I have acquired a car company in Italy and plan to build an exclusive sports car. I can give you one as a gift when the time comes." "Really? That's too precious." Ronald obviously believed it. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass, clinked it, took a sip of wine, and said, "There are so many chores, and this time I came to South Africa was unexpected. Originally, no one was in charge of my small company in China. It's a family business. As old as I am, my family has forced me to manage some things, so you can understand this kind of trouble." Yes, I understand very much. My dad keeps me running to the mines all day long. In the past 2 years, the unit price of tungsten ore has been suppressed more and more severely. It is very difficult to do business. I deal with companies from the United States and Fuzhou." Extremely tired in order to show that he had the same troubles as Lu Feng, Ronald sighed and looked quite melancholy. When Lu Feng heard that companies from these 2 parties were involved, he immediately became concerned and asked, "Let me tell you, companies from these 2 countries are the most difficult to find. My family often deals with them and knows best." "Really? My dad said the same thing. Now the profit margins are constantly declining. Diamonds are not good, and tungsten mines are not good either. A few days ago, my dad said that he plans to sell the tungsten mines next year and focus on making diamond brands. He also asked me to be responsible." Ronald said worriedly, "I don't know anything about diamonds. This aspect is simple. I just had a meal with Bulgaria's marketing president some time ago, and we really only talked about this aspect." Lu Feng smiled mysteriously at Ronald and said, "What do you think? Did you know he told you how to make a diamond brand?" Ronald was a little excited. "Yes, he told me about the core marketing plan of this type of brand. Of course, the diamond market is so big, and it doesn't cost much to be the largest. I'm not very interested in this, but I am interested in tungsten mines. I'm just curious, companies from the United States and Fuzhou come here to buy tungsten ore and build missiles?" Lu Feng asked. Ronald's intuition told him that Lu Feng would never tell him about the diamond brand marketing plan if he didn't tell him about the relationship between the tungsten mine and these 2 countries. "People who make missiles will not buy from us. They are mainly in the electronics industry. I heard they are making core processors." Ronald told the truth. "Core processor? Oh, I remembered it. A thin layer of tungsten alloy needs to be added to the layer of composite material under the circuit board, right?" Lu Feng heard from Liukin that the material of the chip is under the circuit board. "There are several layers of ultra-thin materials, which not only have hardness requirements, but also must be conductive or insulating. I really don't understand this. I know they use it to make photolithography machines, because ours is cheaper here. We mainly provide raw ore. They have their own refineries and make finished products before shipping them away. Lu Feng smiled when he heard this. He was worried that he could not find a downstream company for the global core processor. Wasn't this just a gift? It took a long time to make tungsten alloy in South Africa, so don't blame yourself for being rude. The technical requirements for tungsten alloys in the 1990s were high. This technology was considered a monopoly. Domestic tungsten ore reserves ranked first in the world, but they were similar to current rare earths. They were sold entirely at the price of earth. Because domestic technology was not up to standard, tungsten ore was basically, raw ore is sold. Since they want to play, Lu Feng will accompany them to play. If the ore and rough processing companies here are monopolized by him, the only country left in the world will be domestic. It is not easy for Lu Feng to have such an opportunity to manipulate others. I think the country can let them go. At that time, the two companies will have only one option left. They will search for tungsten ore from other countries, rough process it, and then transport it to South Africa. The cost of this roundabout will skyrocket. I didn't expect that what you are involved in is the world's most sophisticated technology, Lu Feng said with a smile. Actually, I found that some things that look high-end are made, just like diamonds. That day I told Burberry when I talked to the marketing president about diamonds, he told me that diamonds are not valuable, and if you want them to be valuable, you have to create rarity and uniqueness. We are also considering this aspect and want to make it a luxury brand, but such a brand is difficult to build. Ronald frowned and said, what do you think is better linked to it? Love. Love. Yes, it's love. When diamonds equal love, how valuable do you think they are? Everyone in this world wants to fall in love. How can a boy show that he loves a girl? Use diamonds. Lu Feng looked at him and asked, do you understand? Ronald didn't know much about these things, he just kept them in mind. Lu Feng was the one who pretended to be there that night, constantly talking about his plane, connections, family, etc. Ronald felt a little aggrieved. In the past, he had played such a role around his friends, but this night it made him very uncomfortable and made him seem inferior to others. It's an idea. After I get back, I'll talk to our global marketing president. My dad has spent a lot of money this time and asked me to go to the United States to inspect other jewelers, because my family is not there and I don't live there either. I'm very used to it. I bought a villa for me in Manhattan, more than 1,000 square meters. I'm busy attending various high-level dinner parties every day, and I don't have time to go back to live there. I just live with the nanny, Ronald complained. Isn't that right? By the way, we're talking about nannies. Lu Feng turned to look at Han Kuoping and asked, there are a few nannies at home for you to find. How are you doing? Han Kuoping lowered his body slightly and replied, Mr. Lu, we have launched a talent show around the world. The name of the show is Come On, Nanny. We are now in the resurrection competition. It is estimated that the champion, second and third place will be selected by the end of the year. Cough cough cough, Ronald just took a sip of red wine and choked and coughed violently. Who is this character? Are all nannies selected from the draft? Mr. Lu, is the competition among nannies in your family so fierce? Ronald said in disbelief. The main reason is that there are too many houses, people need to look after them, and the salary is not low. I didn't expect the competition to be so fierce, and there is also a draft. You guys, you just know how to spend money randomly, why don't you just find the beauty pageant winner? Well, how many times have I told you to save money? Lu Feng sighed helplessly and waved his hands. Forget it, it doesn't cost much, so be careful next time. Lu Feng picked up the meal napkins and wiped his mouth, then asked casually, Your family plans to sell the tungsten mine next year? Right. It's not next year, it's this year. We are already looking for a buyer. We will use it for brand marketing of diamonds after raising funds, Ronald said with some worry. What's wrong? It's not easy to sell. It's really not easy to sell, because the customer source is single, the profit margin is thin, and the upstream is basically monopolized by a few companies. People can calculate the annual net profit, but if it doesn't work, they can only sell it at a low price. I never imagined that your life would be so hard. Lu Feng looked at Ronald and said, although we don't meet often, in my heart, you are already my brother. I never look at friends when I make them. Whether the other party has money or the brother is in trouble, I will naturally help you. If it is difficult for you to sell, I am willing to buy it at a higher price than the market price. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 955. Latest website. Higher than market price? Ronald's eyes widened and he looked at Lu Feng with disbelief on his face. What kind of brotherhood is this? They had only met twice, but the relationship was so deep, which made him a little unbelievable and asked, acquisition above the market price? Yes, Lu Feng looked at him and said, I have always been very kind to my brothers. If you have difficulties and I don't help, isn't that looking down on me? I like to form brothers, and there are people from all countries. My brothers, there is a saying that the more brothers you have, the easier your journey will be. This sentence simply spoke to Ronald's heart. He always felt that this sentence was right, and he was relatively open-minded towards new friends he met, but his father taught him not to be too open-minded. Mr. Lu, you talk too much. When brothers get to know each other, you help me and I help you. I particularly believe in this saying. Having more friends makes life easier, but my father has the same concept as me. It's not the same, Ronald said with disgust. He told me that in this world, if the road is easy, the friends will be more. The older generation is more conservative in their thinking. Young people like us are the future. If the market price is 10 or 8 points higher than the market price, how much money can we have? Knowing brothers like you is the most valuable thing. Lu Feng smoked a cigar and looked quite excited as he said, what's more, I really fell in love with you at first sight. It just feels like a real brother. I feel the same way. Brother, Ronald also became excited. The price is higher than the market price. As long as he doesn't call him biological father, anything will do. If the price is higher, even if he calls him father, Ronald, I think even my mother can accept it, let alone my father. The atmosphere at the scene became tense. Han Kuoping quietly took a step back and pursed his lips. In the past, when high-level executives gathered for dinner, Zhu Lidong often talked about this kind of scene. Liukin also shared it. At that time, he just felt that drinking some wine would make the conversation very enjoyable. Korea Ping never thought that he would also have the opportunity to play in person. It's countless times more fun than Mr. Zhu and Mr. Lu said. Lu Feng was already sitting next to Ronald, holding a cigar in one hand and hugging Ronald with the other. The two of them had already drank 5 bottles of red wine, and they were a little drunk. Look at your dark skin, it's made of humming matte material, so noble. Lu Feng hugged Ronald hard and said, I am a very pure person, and I don't care about those bad things in the world, I don't pay any attention to it. In my eyes, there are only brothers, no skin color. Don't say you are black. If you are green, you are also my brother. Don't say anything, brother. I have been really unkind to people in the past few years. I have been cheated by my brothers a lot, they are just here for my money. If something goes wrong, I am a brother. If nothing happens, they are just passers-by. Ronald said with some emotion, I am often criticized by my father because of these things. Those are not brothers. He has something wrong. He calls you. Brother, do me a favor. When you have something wrong, he just hides. This kind of person is the worst thing. There is another kind, such as his shortcomings. What, you happen to have it, so I'll give it to you for free. If I'm a brother, how can I make you suffer? I'm a fake brother who wants to take advantage of you under the banner of brother all day long. Are you right? Yes, yes. That's so right, Ronald said with deep emotion. To make friends, you have to be someone like Mr. Liu. I don't care about money. Really, I, a virgin brother, never care whether he has money or not. Anyway, he doesn't have money like me, right? These 2 tungsten mines have become a worry for your family. If I don't solve it for you, am I worthy of being your brother? No. No. Not worthy, Lu Feng said righteously. Ronald was so excited that he rushed to Lu Feng and said, Brother, if you say this, I really can't sell it to you at a higher price than the market price. I have to give you a discount. Really? That's great. Ah. Ha 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 ha, Lu Feng laughed and said to him, Are you kidding me? Apart from your 2 tungsten mines, are there any other mines in South Africa? There are not many tungsten ore reserves here, and most of them are relatively expensive to mine. There are probably only 5 mines. Our 2 mines are definitely the largest. South Africa only has this amount of reserves, but diamonds there are many mines, copper mines and aluminum mines, Ronald said seriously. Only 5 tungsten mines. The overall value is not much. Since these 2 countries have already built factories here and made investments, why should we listen to their suppression? Can't we just buy the 5 mines directly and have the pricing power? Are you done? Lu Feng asked. Ronald, who was slightly drunk, smiled bitterly and waved his hand towards Lu Feng, his face full of unspeakable secrets. Brother, your question is too childish. You can imagine it, but we can't think of it. If people dare to do this openly, they are not afraid of you causing trouble. Today we have a monopoly on raising prices, and the higher UPS will have to ask us tomorrow. If the higher UPS do it, no matter what, within a few days, the world will be in chaos. Ronald seemed to understand the routine very well, and whispered, Squeezing us to death is almost like squeezing an ant to death. Well, I feel like this thing is a hot potato, but it's okay. I'll fight this thunder for you, Lu Feng said righteously. Ronald told him everything about the situation, which was considered a solid explanation. Lu Feng still chose to purchase at a higher price, which surprised him, and he could only think that he might really value brotherhood. The 2 hit it off, smoking cigarettes and drinking wine. Unknowingly, it was almost midnight. When they walked out of the hotel door, the warm tropical monsoon wind from the African continent blew on their faces. Ronald was already staggering, patting his chest and talking to Lu Feng. I promised to take my dad to have a good talk with Lu Feng tomorrow. The driver had already arrived, and Lu Feng personally escorted him into the car. He said to Ronald with great sincerity, I, Lu Feng, have been in this world for so many years, and I have never let my brother suffer a loss. I dare to touch me, I won't hesitate to destroy the whole world for just 1 hair of my brother's hair. Such words were like thunder in Ronald's ears. At this moment, he was so drunk that he stuck his head out, grabbed Lu Feng's hand with both hands, and said excitedly, Brother. I vomit. Let's go, Lu Feng hurriedly pulled his hand back and ordered to the driver. As the car drove away, Ronald vomited and muttered something to Lu Feng in between. The scene was a bit unbearable to watch. Looking back, Lu Feng's face was full of disgust, and he looked at Han Kuoping next to him and said, Go back to the hotel in a while, you guys can have a bite too, let's go. A few minutes later, The car drove over and Lu Feng got in. On the way, Han Kuoping asked Lu Feng, "Mr. Lu, are we going to convert the assets here into minerals this time? But they have 2 mines, and we have 2 mines here. I only have less than 200 million yuan, so I'm afraid I won't be able to buy it, right? If we can't buy it, we'll ship the goods over here. Anyway, according to the laws here, they only track our assets and cash. As for who the goods are sold to after they arrive, we don't care. He wants 1 billion, so I send me a TV set worth 1 billion yuan. Lu Feng spread his hands and said, "The acquisition must be at a premium, there must be conditions." "Mr. Lu, you are so clever. In this way, we can control the assets of 1 billion here with less than 300 million yuan. Han Kuoping silently calculated the products of GFN Electronics in his heart. "The net profit shipped here," he said again, "the cost is less than 400 million. We can't just give people black and white TVs, but also add some high-end ones, VCDs, pagers, etc. No one dares to compete with Wall Street, so I will be the first one," Lu Feng said solemnly. When Han Kuoping heard this, he thought that Lu Feng had controlled the pricing power of tungsten ore, so he immediately counterattacked, and hurriedly reminded, "Mr. Lu, we can't be too hasty. Now they have just suppressed it, and we are making a fuss now. Except you can't get anything in exchange for it except aggravating the suppression." "I know," Lu Feng took a deep breath, lit up his cigarette and took a puff. "I need to win the support of Schroeder's group. If I want to play this game, I have to clearly understand the international trend. Back then, the world was divided into 3 parts. Now, how similar are the 3/3 of the world? Nowadays, the United States is the dominant country, and the European countries are weak and have to unite under pressure. The European Union was born. The remaining poor countries, led by our country, since the boss wants to beat me, then I can't have a good talk with my second brother." As the breeze blew into the car, Han Kuoping leaned back and sighed, "Yes, history is a cycle, but I don't know where this trend will go." In the end, the 3 families returned to the Jin dynasty. The Wei dynasty was strong, but its prosperity must decline. The Wu and Shu countries were united, but they were just hanging on. The Jin dynasty, which no one looked down on at that time, unified the world. Lu Feng looked out the window and said, "The sunrise in the east is as red as fire, and after 100 years, I will be who I am." Ronald was already drunk and unconscious when he got home. He woke up early the next morning and recalled what happened last night. He didn't bother to wash up and called his father immediately. "Hey, Dad," Ronald's voice sounded quite excited, "our mine has gone somewhere, and I have a good brother who is willing to buy it at a price higher than the market price." The old man who was preparing to have breakfast on the other end of the phone didn't want to eat any more when he heard this. He shouted at the phone, "Brother again? How much have you been fooled by brothers? Last time it was a brother from Europe who asked you to engage in finance. Stock trading, people make money by trading stocks, you trade stocks until the company is delisted, and become a shareholder. Last time, it was a brother from the Americas who went to Brazil to build a women's football team. What was the result? Your brother made the belly of the female player bigger than the football. Still playing football? Kick a ball. What kind of brother are you this time? This time we are brothers from Asia, absolutely reliable," Ronald vowed. "What are you doing this time? Selling oil? Buy it from Saudi Arabia and sell it to Iraq." The other end of the phone had already begun to roar. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 956. Latest website. The voice coming from the phone was so harsh that Ronald had to put the phone away and said helplessly, "Dad, it's true this time, this brother is very reliable, and he is not only rich, but also powerful." "Well, if they are so rich, why do they still care about our little money? Then tell me, did he buy our mine at a higher price than the market price? Really, if I don't do anything else this time, I just want to buy our tungsten mine and help us tide over the difficulties. If you think I'm unreliable, you can see it yourself. The mine has to be sold anyway. Ronald was angry. Road. Let me tell you, our mine has been negotiated by several companies in the United States and Fuzhou. It will be purchased at market price, but the money may be delayed for several years. I feel relieved to sell it to them. You sell them? Ronald was a little speechless. Why have he been bullied by these companies when signing orders over the years? Why do you still want to give them a discount? Ronald really thinks that his father has some kind of attribute and is being bullied. Who are you selling to? My brother still pays in cash, and the price is higher than theirs. Dad, let me tell you, I will handle this matter, so don't worry about it. Our diamond mine is still waiting for money. When it comes to brand development, if we let them hold us back, we won't get anything done, Ronald said a little anxiously. After a long time of pulling and pulling, the old man also thought that he could meet his son's good brother. What if it happened? So we made an appointment for afternoon tea in his commercial building. Lu Feng just woke up at around 10 o'clock in the morning. After washing and cleaning up, it was time to have lunch. At the dinner table, Lu Feng didn't have much appetite. He drank a lot last night. Putting down his chopsticks, Lu Feng asked Han Kuoping, has the court's verdict been handed down? It should be the day after tomorrow at the latest. After Han Kuoping said something, he suddenly thought of something and said hurriedly, by the way, the company will hold a board meeting on December 10th. It will be easy to go back then. Board meeting? I didn't hold it. Oh, Lu Feng reacted, nodded, and said, book a flight ticket for me in advance. When the time comes, book a flight ticket to Xiangjiang and then return to Shenzhen. Okay, that Ronald also called and asked you to meet at the central building in the afternoon. His father is also there. If everything goes well, the tungsten mine matter should be settled, Kuoping estimated. This matter must go smoothly. When the court implements the asset freeze, it must be done. Let the court directly freeze the accounts of the mine. Anyway, the companies that supply them in the mine have periodic settlements. With our strength, we can provide the mine workers with after a few months' salary. It's still no problem. Lu Feng sat there and thought slowly. Mr. Lu, why don't we fight back as soon as we get the minerals? When the time comes, we will sell the minerals directly to them, and the money will be cashed out. Kuoping wondered. No, Lu Feng waved his hand and leaned on the chair and said, I'm not short of those hundreds of millions. When doing things, don't always focus on the small profits in front of you, but have long-term strategic goals. Good steel must be used on the blade, and we cannot directly buy these two mines. We need to find an unrelated person to come forward and buy them, so as not to alert others. I'll handle this matter. No, you can't handle it. You have to let Ronald and his people handle it. You have to hide this hidden weapon. At the critical moment, you have to poke a hole for them to come out, Lu Feng said solemnly. Han Kuoping could feel that Lu Feng had been suppressing his dissatisfaction in his heart, but facing such a powerful opponent, no matter how dissatisfied he was, he could only suppress it. After dinner, Lu Feng took a brief rest. The matter was basically settled. From the current point of view, neither Fuzhou nor the United States had any intention of further suppression, which made Lu Feng feel a little relieved. Lying on the bed, Lu Feng had no intention of resting. He didn't know what kind of monster Su Yorong was doing now, but Lu Feng knew one thing. This woman never resigned herself to others, even if she would one day devour him. Impossible things. The international environment is complex, and the United States and Fuzhou have begun to compete in high-end semiconductors. The investment of both parties is not small, especially the investment and support of the United States in Silicon Valley. This can be seen through the capital investment of Wall Street in recent years. Whether it is internally or externally, it is not friendly to Lu Feng. Now he can only look forward to doing more things in a short period of time with Europe as his back. There is really not enough time. Sometimes I think about it, and 2 years is an optimistic estimate. How can a sophisticated industry like semiconductor be developed in a short time? The best result Lu Feng can think of now is that GFN Electronics will occupy a place in core technologies such as chip design, film capacitors, aluminum electrolytic capacitors, inductors, crystal oscillators, etc., and cultivate related industrial chains in the country. Of course, given the domestic electronics consumption situation, it is extremely difficult to cultivate an industrial chain. In the end, it all depends on the country's wishes. It is difficult for Lu Feng alone to change these things. Lu Feng is already thinking about responding to the above after returning and increasing investment and support for integrated circuits. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I changed my clothes. It was the same scene as yesterday. Several luxury cars were parked downstairs of the hotel. Lu Feng got in the car and went straight to the agreed place. The central building is located in the city center of Cape Town. Ronald's family has developed it in partnership with others and holds a certain shareholding. This building is also a famous local attraction, which shows the Ronald family's financial power in the local area. When the appointed time arrived, Ronald was already waiting downstairs. This time he had to prove to his father no matter what, that he was by no means the kind of person who makes bad friends, and this time he wanted to bring honor to the family. The motorcade drove slowly, and Lu Feng's car stopped in the middle. The doors of the 2 cars in front and behind opened, and the bodyguards rushed out to take their seats first. The 2 people walked towards the car door, opened the door, and Lu Feng stepped out of the car. Han Qiaoping got out of the car, holding a windbreaker and draped it on Lu Feng's shoulders. In Ronald's eyes, this set of procedures was so handsome that he said with bright eyes, "Brother, my dad is waiting." "I'm not late, am I?" Lu Feng walked over and asked. No, no, Ronald knew that his father never thought highly of his friends, especially the younger ones, who looked down upon him even less, and spoke more casually. If Lu Feng was unhappy, this deal would isn't it yellow? "Brother, let me tell you something. My dad is not very good at talking sometimes. You mainly look at me. If there is anything wrong with him, don't take it personally," Ronald said in advance. "Vaccinated? Ha 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 ha, how could that be?" Lu Feng said generously. "I've always been very tolerant towards the poor, don't worry." Ronald always felt bad when he heard this. He used to brag to others about his wealth, but now his position was reversed. Going upstairs, the decoration inside was very simple. In a large living room, Lu Feng saw a black man in his 50s. He was not tall, somewhat bald, but had a thick beard. Ronald's father took a look at Lu Feng. This time, he felt that his son's friend was different from the previous times. The young man in front of him looked like he had the aura of a superior, as if he was always in a state of calling others around. "You're here? Sit down." He casually pointed to the sofa next to him, ordered the people around him to serve tea, stared at Lu Feng and asked, "Are you friends with my son?" "It's true, it's not true. We met twice and we met on a plane." Lu Feng told the truth. Ronald's father was stunned when he heard this. Didn't he say that he was a good brother or a good friend? He looked at Ronald, who was almost frozen as he stood there, forgetting to tell Lu Feng not to mention this matter. "Whether we know each other or not, I think business is business. What's more, Ronald and I hit it off right away, so it makes sense to help him. I'm very happy to see you today, but the most important thing is to talk about business." Lu Feng leaned on the sofa and said, "I am willing to purchase those 2 tungsten mines at a price 10% higher than the market price, and you will continue to hold the management rights on your behalf." When Ronald's father heard this, he felt even more unreliable. he would buy his own mine and run it himself, but he wouldn't ask any questions. Isn't this a pure idiot? So where are you going to do something? Ronald's father asked very directly. Just spread it out and tell me how you are going to deceive this stupid son of mine. How could I lie? The contract is written in black and white, how can I cheat? The ownership of the minerals belongs to me, and I will grant you the right to operate it. There will be no changes after the acquisition. Do not tell anyone about the acquisition of the minerals to the outside world. Lu Feng stared at him and asked, if you are willing to sell, I will pay 200 million immediately after signing the contract. Ronald's father frowned a little. He knew the price of his minerals. He had been selling them for so long, but it had never been easy to sell them. Suddenly, he was taken advantage of. What about the remaining balance? We will pay the remaining amount through goods. Don't worry, these goods are just handed over from you. Someone will buy them immediately. We promise to complete all payments within December, and you have to do me a favor, help me acquire the remaining tungsten mines, Lu Feng said solemnly. Ronald's father asked many key questions, such as what kind of currency, whether it involved underground black money, and whether it was an illegal transaction, and the results were all fine. This made him a little dazed. Isn't this pie in the sky? I'm going to have a meeting first to discuss this matter. Schroeder's father stood up and told Schroeder, stay with your friend. Dad will be here soon. Schroeder's father called in some legal affairs and senior management and held a meeting for more than half an hour. They all felt that there was no problem with this matter. As long as more attention was paid to the risks when signing the contract, everything else would be fine. After the discussion, Schroeder's father became excited, took a deep breath, and said with emotion, I never thought that my silly son would one day meet someone else's silly son. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 957. Latest website. An hour later, Ronald's father sat down in the living room, with an uncontrollable smile on his face. He shook hands with Lu Feng first, and he was much more polite than before. I'm really sorry, Mr. Lu. My son has never been very reliable. Please forgive me for any apology I made just now. Since you want to acquire these 2 tungsten mines, I will ask them to introduce you to the relevant situation. You will also inspect it when the time comes, and we will try to sign an agreement early next year. Ronald's father gestured to the professional manager next to him. That's right, the total storage capacity of these 2 tungsten mines currently accounts for 1/3 of South Africa's proven tungsten storage, and the total amount is. No need to say any more. Lu Feng interrupted him directly and asked Ronald's father, I just want to ask a question, is the tungsten ore rough processing plant included in these 2 mines? That's right, they don't want raw ore. They need to simply refine it and hand it over to the finishing plant they set up here. We are a medium-sized rough processing plant. That's no problem. As for going to see the ore, with a good brother like Ronald, I don't think it's necessary to see it. I trust him. Besides, even if you lose, you don't have much money. No matter how poor I am, I won't be able to dig out even a little money. According to the market price, yours is 1 billion yuan, right? Lu Feng looked at Ronald. Actually, how many US dollars is 1 billion RMB? Ronald's father wondered. About 130 million yuan. Lu Feng said to the father and son, I will first pay the local currency worth 200 million yuan, and the remaining money will be settled within the next 12 months. At the same time, I need to sign a confidentiality agreement. This matter is top secret. There are several remaining local mines, and I hope you two can help me. Since I want to play, I want to be the boss. There is no fun in petty fighting. Ronald didn't quite understand Lu Feng's tricks. His father was an old businessman. Especially in the past 2 years, he had supplied goods to Fuzhou and the United States, so he knew a little bit about some aspects of the international community. Lu Feng knew what he wanted to do. He didn't dare to do anything that the young man in front of him dared to do. Such a thing would be like a 1,000-year kill from behind. For both countries, it would not be fatal, but it would definitely be sour. Cool. We can manage it for you, or we can keep it secret, but we don't care about what happens in the mine in the future, and we are not the main responsible person. I will help you find a professional manager when the time comes. On the surface, my mine is actually mine. It has nothing to do with my family, and I will take care of it for you for 12 months, Ronald's father said shrewdly. 12 months later, as soon as he got the money, he left immediately. He dared to take this risk. Firstly, he felt that nothing big would happen within 12 months. Secondly, there was oil and water in it, and Lu Feng, if you don't send someone to manage the mine, it's not impossible for the mine carts, or things in the warehouse, and the money in the account to suddenly become sperm one night and run away on your own. No problem, as long as it's convenient for you, uncle, I'll do anything. I don't care much about assets. If I buy a mine in Africa today and a building in Europe tomorrow, I might forget about it, Lu Feng joked. Ha 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 ha, I can see your temperament. So let's draw up a contract today. No problem. My lawyer just happened to be here too. The two parties to the contract have discussed it. My payment method is mainly goods. To be honest, the Chinese New Year is coming soon. I have to keep 18 billion in my pocket. If your child gives you a red envelope, I can guarantee you that when the goods arrive, someone will take them immediately, and you just have to go through the formalities. As Lu Feng spoke, he waved to the lawyer. All the necessary terms for Lu Feng were listed. In order to prevent anyone from tracing the actual controller, Lu Feng placed the actual controller of the tungsten mine this time. Duoduo's name. I believe that with Lu Feng's relationship with Duoduo, it won't be a big problem if she gets her stamped and signed when the time comes. If she doesn't like it, Zhang Xiaoyan will give her a beating. The contract was signed very quickly. After both parties had no objections, Lu Feng signed on Duoduo's behalf and handed over 200 million yuan worth of local currency today. These two tungsten mines will definitely be extremely valuable in the future. I will be the host tonight and treat Mr. Lu to a meal of our local delicacies. Ronald has many brothers, but Mr. Lu is definitely the one I recognize the most. Ronald's dad smiled so hard that his old face almost turned into folds. He grabbed Lu Feng's hand in a friendly manner, which was like shaking off this hot potato. If Lu Feng doesn't buy it, no one in the local area will dare to sell it. Are those companies backed by the United States and FUZU that ordinary people dare to offend? In the end, I am afraid that they gave it to others, half bought and half given. This was the main reason why they were anxious to transfer the tungsten ore. In the evening, the dinner table was filled with all kinds of delicacies. Lu Feng briefly tasted them all, and also called a dance troupe to perform local dances. They dressed as animals and held spears in their hands. The scene was quite wild. A good meal of singing, dancing. I've almost finished drinking. I have to say that ginger is still hotter than old. Ronald's father is very good at the dinner table. Whether he is talking or complimenting Lu Feng casually, it can make the atmosphere at the dinner table more harmonious. No matter which country you are from, if you sit at the same dining table with some experienced people, you will feel nothing but a sense of comfort all over your body. Such people are extraordinary in their ability to observe words, topics, knowledge, and personality. Young people can compare. At 11 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng and Ronald's father walked downstairs arm in arm, calling each other like brothers. His father personally put Lu Feng into the car and promised, "Mr. Lu, since we are brother, then don't worry, leave all the things here to me, and you can just do your big things. I'll take care of such small things." Father Ronald's chest crackled as he patted it, looking particularly sincere. Brother, what you said makes me feel relieved. It's not about money. It's mainly about people. I value you as a person and your appetite for me. Lu Feng grabbed his hand and laughed. Come to our house for dinner when you have time, and let your sister-in-law cook your specialty dishes. The two of them were being polite, but Ronald stood aside and couldn't bear it anymore and said, Dad, you and Mr. Lu are brothers, so who am I? I am an upright person, and I don't know those meandering things. What's mine is yours, brother, and my son is your son, Father Ronald said with a bit of a joke. The crowd burst into laughter, and Lu Feng said to Ronald, then I'll be disrespectful. You go back and get some rest early. Brother, you go first, I have to watch you go. Gee, bro, you're too polite. You're welcome, you should. Father Ronald closed the car door and said solemnly, this is my respect for you. There was a stalemate at the scene, and Lu Feng's motorcade could only drive away. When the motorcade was submerged in a sea of cars, the smile on Ronald's father's face disappeared. Dad, why did you ask me to be your son after you drank some wine? That's my brother. Shut up, what's wrong with being a son? A few days ago, I was looking for people to sell the mine, but no one paid any attention to me as a grandson. We have to deal with this matter ourselves, the deputy director of the mine. Haven't you always wanted to climb up? Give him a chance, Ronald's father told the people around him. He is not allowed to officially tell the public about the sale of tungsten mine, but he needs to let it out. Feng, if something goes wrong, there will be a reason. As for the two companies, Miguo and Fuzhou, if they ask, they will just say that there is no problem with supply and just fool the rest. New. At the door of the hotel, Lu Feng got out of the car, feeling the coolness of the night, and said to the captain and the bodyguards, everyone has worked hard. The court's verdict should be handed down the day after tomorrow. It is a good thing that this trip has such an ending at the end. Let's all go eat. After getting on the elevator, making sure it was safe, leaving a few people behind, the others went to eat. Han Kuoping said to Lu Feng, Mr. Lu, the air tickets are booked for the day after tomorrow. Should we go and thank Ambassador Su tomorrow? Oh, yes, I almost forgot about it. I'm busy this time. Let's buy some gifts tomorrow and go take a look. Lu Feng said to Han Kuoping, you can go to eat too. I'll contact you tomorrow. People from the court asked the bank to unfreeze the assets and transfer them to them. Okay, I'll take care of this. The assets of GFN Electronics have been seized, frozen. Originally, there was no room for maneuver in this matter. We spent a lot of money to hire a local lawyer. The result was that the assets were prohibited from leaving the country and will be unfrozen tomorrow. For several hours, the reason was that it was impossible to determine whether the assets involved patent infringement before the judgment was issued, so the freeze was naturally invalid. Even a ghost would not accept such a reason, but in this kind of case, how to judge is a matter of knowledge. The sentence is too harsh. South Africa will do whatever they say. South Africa is shameless. It's not okay to not judge the case at all. Of course, it must be judged. This involves the artistry of the trial. It's almost December, and domestic rumors about GFN Electronics' overseas operations are still spreading in the industry. Some people feel sorry for it, some are gloating about it, and some are cursing that Lu Feng deserves it, and you two are here today. Li Xian was a little anxious at the moment. Su Yurong kept urging him to make a decision, but after so many years of business competition, his instinct told him that this matter was risky. 3 hours ago, Su Yurong gave him Lu Feng's phone number and asked him to make his own decision. If he was unwilling to spend money to take over the GFN shares sold by Sun Hongkai, Su Yurong would team up with more powerful people to do so. Done. After thinking about it, Li Xian still dialed Lu Feng's number. Hey, is this Mr. Lu? Li Xian asked. I am, who are you? Lu Feng asked. I am a director of United Capital and a major shareholder. Are you familiar with Mr. Su? This phone call was given to me by Mr. Su. I just wanted to ask one thing. Has the matter in South Africa been dealt with? Lizian asked. It's taken care of, Lu Feng replied naturally. What's wrong? Oh, that's good. Several of our major shareholders were against all opinions and invested in you through the bank. They really valued your ability. What does Schroeder's investment group mean now? After all, this matter my son is too big, are you right? Lizian said implicitly. It's nothing over there. Everything is normal in the company. The first tranche of us $500 million has been paid. Next year, all us $300 million should be fully paid. What's wrong? Lu Feng asked confused. Nothing, it's good. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 958. Latest website. Lizian really wanted to open up to Lu Feng and fully understand the risks of this matter, but Su Yorong told him that GFN Electronics was out of danger and had not told anyone. Lu Feng did this just because he wanted to. In order to repurchase the equity, he wanted to scare Sun Hung Kai and United Capital into giving away 20% of the equity. After all, Lu Feng doesn't have much equity in his hands now. Even Su Yorong was chatting with Lu Feng, and the other party accidentally let it slip, so now as an individual, he bought 10% of Sun Hung Kai's equity, and he made money after buying it. The most important thing is that this matter must not be known to anyone. Once the secret is revealed, everything will be ruined. Lizian originally said that he could raise 70 to 800 million, but he only has 200 million in hand today. However, now is definitely the best time to buy GFN Electronics equity at the bottom. Once you buy it, it will take a year and a half to change hands. Selling Schroeder Investment Group, Lu Feng, or Wall Street, they all have to grab it if it doubles. Especially Lu Feng, if he holds 10% more equity, he will have a stronger position in the board of directors. It goes without saying how valuable this is. After hanging up the phone, Lizian smoked one cigarette after another. He is already 65 this year. He has been a major shareholder of United Capital for most of his life. It was during Chen Shifeng's entrepreneurial days that he did it to win over Chen Shifeng. Money, he didn't expect that it would become the best investment in his life. Over the years, he has seen too many rich people in Xiangjiang. Even a girl like Su Yorong is more beautiful than him in the movie. It is impossible for him not to feel aggrieved. The phone rang again. Lizian took a puff of cigarette, answered the phone and said, "Who is this?" "Mr. Li, you haven't made up your mind yet? What time is it? If it doesn't work, I'll find someone else." Su Yorong's voice came from the other end of the phone. "No, do you think the development of GFN Electronics will be so good next year?" Lizian wondered. "Forget it, go to bed early, pretend I didn't tell you." "No, Mr. Su, you are close to Lu Feng, do you know any inside information? Let me tell you this, next year's development will be faster than this year's. With the support of $3.5 billion, we can develop wherever we want in the global market." Lu Feng was growing by leaps and bounds when he had no money, let alone now that he has money. "What do you think?" Su Yorong said lightly. "That makes sense, but now I only have 200 million in my hand. Ugh. Otherwise, you pledge the equity of United Capital in your hand and exchange it for some cash. I will also borrow some. Let's collect 1 billion and buy the equity of GFN Electronics first, and then pledge it to GFN Electronics. Unlocking the equity of United Capital is just a matter of changing hands." Su Yorong leaned on the sofa and applied a facial mask and said, "As long as the equity is transferred, Even if it is pledged in the bank, it is still ours. Is the risk too great? Lizian asked worriedly. Hey, look at how brave you are. No wonder something happened to Jiafeng. You were the first person to convene the board of directors. Anyway, this is the only trick left, Su Yorong said with a hint of displeasure in his voice. For those who play finance, how can you play finance without leverage? Lizian was very dissatisfied with Su Yorong's attitude. If she, a CEO, dared to talk to him like this before this incident, he would definitely scold her. However, now that the profitable business is in someone else's hands, I can bear it. Give it a try, and the bicycle will turn into a motorcycle, Su Yorong stimulated with words. You are so old, right? What's more, there is really no risk. I don't dare to buy it if there is risk. This is not your business. I am also included in this. Lizian's expression changed. He gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Mortgage, this opportunity is once in a lifetime. Isn't that right? On my side, I have scraped together everything, so I have to go out and grab the money. It is only 200 million at most. You have 200 million now. As long as the equity in your hand is pledged, just 600 million, Su Yorong said slowly. I only have 7% of the equity in United Capital. According to the current market value, it is worth 1 billion. The bank mortgage is more serious than cutting it in half. The maximum I can pledge is 500 million, Lizian said anxiously. Of course Su Yorong knew, and it was not 500 million, but 420 million. She had already figured out the market price for Lizian, but she was stuck on his last point. You should talk to the presidents of the major banks tomorrow to estimate the price. If it really doesn't work, I'll use my connections to ask. As soon as possible, it's best to get it done in the next 2 days. Jiafeng Electronics board meeting is coming soon. That's when everything will be revealed. Su Yorong continued to make him more anxious. Okay, you can also raise more. Mr. Lee, do you think I don't want to? If you buy it, you will make a profit. I'm about to sell myself now. It's getting late, so go to bed early. Su Yorong urged a few more words before hanging up the phone, put down the phone and put on the mask. He took it off and hummed, big fat pig, big fat pig, big fat pig. Lizian couldn't sleep that night, smoking one cigarette after another. Lu Feng hung up the phone, murmuring in his heart. He couldn't understand that Lizian, a person who had nothing to do with him, suddenly called him. It felt like something was wrong. Without thinking much, Lu Feng went to take a shower. After taking a shower, he lay on the bed and was about to fall asleep. He suddenly remembered that Su Yorong had told him about this major shareholder. This old boy is being targeted. Lu Feng sat up and wanted to call him and explain the matter clearly. When he reached the living room, he stopped picking up the phone and dialing the number. If this ruins Su Yorong's affairs, it would be troublesome. It would be a lie to say that he is not afraid of this woman. In the years since his rebirth, Lu Feng has met many women, and the most ruthless one is Su Yorong. This woman has strong academic qualifications, many thoughts, and ruthless attacks. At this critical moment, it is not a wise move to provoke such a woman. After all, she's just a woman. Lu Feng seemed to have found an excuse for his cowardice, put down the phone and went back to the house to sleep. 2 years later, Lu Feng would definitely want to go back to this moment and slap himself hard. What many people in this world lack is an opportunity. If you seize the opportunity, the beast will emerge. The next day, Cape Town was sunny and the weather was good. Lu Feng calculated the time difference and called home. He told Duo that he had bought 2 mines for her and asked her to prepare some information and give it to Wei Yandan. Fill in the person's information. Of course, Zhang Xiaoyan is Duo's guardian, and these 2 mines are strictly in Zhang Xiaoyan's hands. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Han Kuoping prepared some gifts and placed them in the car. He made an appointment with Ambassador Su to have a meal together at noon. Xiangjiang, at 8 o'clock in the morning, Li Xian got into the car with dark circles under his eyes and met with several bank presidents he had made appointments with. The meeting was very fast. In less than 2 hours, he met with 6 presidents, and the highest offer was 400 million. The price is 20 million, even if Li Xian mortgages all the house and car, the maximum price is 500 million. At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he felt that his last glimmer of hope was about to be extinguished. Maybe he just didn't have the luck to make money. If he had less money, he could still scrape it together. No one could help him if he had 100 million pitfall, and he had lost all his assets. If you smash it in, no fool would borrow it. At 1:30, he hurriedly took a bite of food and finally called Su Yorong. I can raise up to 700 million now. Otherwise, you can raise 80 million more. You have many connections in Xiangjiang. 70 to 80 million is nothing. I will find a way to spare 20 million, Li Xian said to the phone. If I have that ability, why do you need to tell me? 7 or 80 million is nothing. Don't look at the secret glances at everyone at the banquet. If you really want to raise money, one will run faster than the other. What age are we in now? Everyone has money. I'm covering my head so tightly. Talk to the bank. Aren't you having a good time with several presidents? It's just because I played well that I was given a little more than 400 million. Otherwise, it would have been more than 300 million at most. What should I do? Li Xian now understands the feeling of being stumped by a penny. Otherwise, I know a big boss in Singapore and ask if you can pledge more of your equity. Su Yorong asked, is that okay? At this point, Li Xian could only agree. After hanging up the phone, Su Yorong glanced at the time, then lay there eating fruit and continued to relax. An hour later, she picked up the phone and called Li Xian. I have put in a lot of effort this hour, but fortunately the thing is done, 650 million, I still say that you are my relative, I will keep my promise, but there is one thing, the contract they signed with you is in the 15-day capital bridge contract. If you don't repay the money after 15 days, the equity will directly become yours, Su Yorong said into the phone. Is the risk too great? If the bridge is pulled halfway, my equity will be gone. Li Xian immediately became alert. Hey brother, 15 days is enough. Besides, GFN Electronics owns 10% of the equity. Are you afraid that you won't be able to pay this amount? Just do this. Call the bank presidents and ask them. How much can be pledged for 10% of the equity of GFN Electronics? Their current valuation is tens of billions of US dollars, and 10% is equivalent to 1 billion US dollars. Even if the bank blocks it, it will still be 3 to 4 billion US dollars, right? 3 to 4 billion US dollars. Li Xian felt his heart beat suddenly, and his assets would instantly increase several times. This is the charm of finance. Okay, I'll call and ask. Li Xian called several banks and asked them to estimate how much GFN Electronics 10% equity could be pledged. The prices they offered ranged from $100 million to $300 million. Because the risks of GFN Electronics International are still there, the reason why the offer is so high is entirely because of the $3.5 billion invested by Schroders Group. With this background, Li Xian had a smile on his face. Not to mention that the equity was taken away, even if it was a share exchange, he would still make a lot of money. Okay. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 959. Latest website. Li Xian called Su Yorong back and expressed his agreement to the matter, but he wanted to go to Singapore to sign the contract in person in case anything went wrong. How could Su Yorong give him this opportunity? He told him directly that he would pester the Sun Hung Kai people this afternoon and must buy it tomorrow. This equity pledge needs to be pledged to Su Yorong first, and then Su Yorong will draw up a contract and pledge it to the other party. This process is entirely because the other party can pledge such a high price because of Su Yorong's face. Li Xian was not a fool, and he was determined not to do this. The two of them were in a stalemate, so Su Yorong had no choice but to take a step back, call his good brother, and send someone from the company to sign the contract in Xiangjiang. Li Xian was also present when the time came. Only then did Li Xian agree. Lu Feng and his entourage had already arrived at the embassy, carrying large and small bags, and made a special trip to thank Ambassador Su. After being polite, the two parties sat down in the living room. Ambassador Su also said with emotion, "This matter is really not easy, and the result is not satisfactory. As the first mainland company to go overseas, sometimes I really feel sorry for you, for not creating a new one for you good international environment. Don't say that, it's already a very good result. When I came here, I thought I couldn't get the money back. Although I just left the money here and there, it's already very good. The country you are the parent, there is no way to say that you are not the parent," Lu Feng said sincerely. Ambassador Su sighed, looked at Lu Feng and said, "This is how it is in the world now. If you don't have much strength, you will be bullied. Although you won't invade your home, there will be a lot of troubles when doing business internationally. I really make you feel wronged. No, since the strength is not enough, let's develop. No one is born to run away. Compared with the previous decades, we are already very good. It is normal to have difficulties. Try to overcome them. If you can't overcome them, you can't. We have to face it," Lu Feng said with emotion. Yes. Ambassador Su took out a cigarette and handed it to Lu Feng. His expression was not good, and he said, "According to the current international situation, if you develop in a high-tech direction, you will definitely be squeezed by the international community. If it doesn't work, just find someone else. Reliance is also a way." There was a sense of helplessness in Ambassador Su's words. Who doesn't want to develop high-end industries? The country is just like living a simple life. No one wants to live a simple life. If an ambitious person from the family wants to go out to make money, he is still being squeezed. His mood, how can it be good? Relying on a wealthy family to avoid being bullied is a helpless move. It will get better. I will leave tomorrow after the court's verdict is announced. Don't feel sorry for some things. Lands and rivers meet. Things on the earth go back and forth. I was beaten today. I will definitely remember it. Well, anyway, I have to find the right opportunity to give him a shot," Lu Feng said with a smile. Ambassador Su was stunned when he heard this and said hurriedly, "Only for business, don't cause other things." "Don't worry, I still have a sense of proportion. Today is to thank you for your busy schedule and to say goodbye. At the same time, there is another matter. If there is a chance, can you respond to the leadership and let the country pay more attention to it? The semiconductor industry, especially related supporting industries, still hopes that the state will provide more support in this regard." "Okay, I will definitely react when I get the chance. Then you're quite busy, so I won't interrupt you too much." Lu Feng stood up and said, "Don't send me off, we might see you again sometime." After exchanging polite words and taking a group of photos, Lu Feng left the embassy and got in the car back to the hotel. Xiangjiang, afternoon. In order to speed up the progress, Su Yorong told Li Xian that the big boss there entrusted a few people in the Xiangjiang office to handle the matter, and the contract could be signed in the afternoon. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in the reception room of a 5-star hotel, Su Yorong was dressed very beautifully and wore high heels. When she saw Li Xian, she smiled, walked up and shook hands and said, "It's finally done. It's not easy. Where are they? You're not here yet. Please stop talking for a while." I'll tell you, I signed the contract today and the money should arrive tomorrow. I have to have a meal with Mr. Feng from Sun Hung Kai in the evening until the payment is paid. Su Yorong's face Shang couldn't help but smile and said, I'm going to get rich. Mr. Su, don't worry, this matter is definitely your fault. I will support you unconditionally on the board of directors from now on. Li Xian gave a blank check. The two chatted happily. 10 minutes later, a man in his 40s came in with an assistant and asked Su Yorong, is this Mr. Su? Hello, I'm Su Yorong from United Capital. Is Mr. Wang sending you here? Su Yorong asked. Yes, I'm mainly here to handle a contract. Who is this? The man looked at Li Xian. My friend, it's okay. Please sit down. After saying a few polite words and sitting down, Li Xian stared at the man in front of him and looked him up and down. He seemed a little nervous, his whole body was very stiff, something was wrong about him, and he couldn't tell what was wrong. The contract is a faxed contract. I just need to understand the required payment, mainly the 15-day repayment period. Our company's articles of association are already stamped on it. Just sign it after you confirm that there is no problem. The man handed over 2 copies. The children's contract was placed on the table. After Li Xian got the contract, he looked through it and made sure there was no problem. Then he asked in a low voice, are you sure it's reliable? Do not worry. After signing the contract, the 2 other parties said that the money would be transferred to Su Yorong's account in the contract. They had something to do, so they left first and then left. Li Xian took a deep breath, looked at Su Yorong and said, the money will be transferred to your account when the time comes. Is that okay? If you don't believe me, let's sign a contract. Besides, this is a society ruled by law. As long as you go to court and sue, my account will be frozen directly. Are you afraid that I will run away with your money? Su Yorong said with a smile. Li Xian was not afraid that she would run away with the money, but that she would use the money to buy the 10% equity in her own name. After making money, if she gave this money to herself, she would suffer a big loss. Already. The two signed another contract in the living room that day, and Li Xian felt relieved. With the 2 contracts in hand, Su Yorong was in an indescribably good mood. He invited a group of shareholders to a dinner in the evening and said that the board of directors will be held tomorrow. Since his personal equity is not in his hands, he cannot enjoy all the rights and interests of shareholders, so he will be temporarily kicked out. Out of the boardroom. The next morning, United Capital held an interim board of directors meeting. At the meeting, it was unanimously voted to temporarily kick Li Xian out of the board of directors. He is not eligible to participate in the board of directors. Last night Li Xian was lying at home dreaming of making a fortune every day. When he received the news the next day, he was numb. The High Court of Cape Town officially pronounced its verdict on the GFN Electronics transnational trade case at 10 o'clock in the morning. Since many products such as TVs, pagers, VCDs, and radios produced by GFN Electronics Group involve intellectual property disputes, the case against GFN Electronics Group is now a judgment was issued on the assets under its name, prohibiting the company's domestic assets from flowing multiple times, prohibiting the company's assets from leaving the country, and freezing existing accounts under the company's name. The subsequent judgment involves the issue of unfreezing existing funds. The unfreezing time is 24 hours, and subsequent incoming assets will be frozen as soon as they are discovered. There was an uproar in the media when this verdict came out. It seemed that the verdict against GFN Electronics was very strict, but in fact it was full of loopholes and there was not much reliable legal basis. Even the infringement was only at the level of possible involvement. It's just some simple electronic products. The relevant agencies quickly identified them, but they couldn't produce any substantial evidence. Many media no longer focus on the company GFN Electronics, but have moved to the international community. An hour later, the British Reuters expressed its opinion, saying that the South African judgment was an extremely confusing and without legal basis. It reflects the fear of certain countries. The money worth 200 million UN in the company account was immediately transferred to Ronald's father's company account. This trip came to an imperfect end. At the same time, GFN Electronics also signed orders worth 800 million UN with 3 cooperative companies in South Africa. The money will not go out, but the goods can come in. Any company would shake its head after seeing this kind of business, but Lufeng did this kind of business. In the afternoon, everyone who paid attention to this matter had learned the news. The senior executives of Wall Street financial companies agreed that Lufeng must have given up. After being punished like this, unless he wants to be beaten more severely next, as long as he is a smart person, he will not continue to do it. In a manner, the weather was clear and the sun was shining brightly. Lambert held the phone in his hand. After hearing the news, he looked at the old man opposite. The latest news is that GFN Electronics has been sentenced in South Africa and is prohibited from leaving the country. Lambert looked at the old man opposite and asked, "I wonder what Mr. Saras thinks he will do next." "I don't understand him." Saras shook his head and said with a smile, "Do you think he will give in? Then give up." "Yes. This is not the person you told me about. The person you described to me should be secretly accumulating strength at this moment and give you a fatal blow at any time," Saras analyzed. "Ha ha ha ha," Lambert laughed and said, "I have not offended him, and no one has ever targeted him. If he has to find an enemy, then it is the United States. Do you think he is a country's rival? Well, an individual is too insignificant in front of the country." "Really? In fact, I think some countries are very fragile from a financial perspective. Recently, I was chatting with some friends in the financial industry and they came up with a concept about how to steal a country." Saras said with a smile, "This is really interesting, I want to give it a try sometimes." Latest website.